Welcome to the RAG Podcast, the weekly show where I interview recruitment owners who are prepared to tell their unique story of growth. This is all in aid of helping future and existing recruitment businesses who are looking to do similar things. Now, growth means different things to different people. So, by tuning in every week, you're no doubt going to find information that's relevant to you.
All right, welcome to the RAG Podcast live from Sydney, Australia. The weather is awful, but we are having a great time. It's terrible. Today, I'm joined by a good friend, a client, someone who's been on the show, Dan Moussa from Talesca in Brisbane. Dan, how are you?
Mate, good. Lovely to finally meet you in person.
I know. Well, we know each other anyway, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel a bit gutted you gave me a complex about wearing a white recruiter button-up shirt.
You look like you're a recruiter, that's all I said. Yeah, you are a recruiter, right?
Yeah, but I don't look like a...
I had the quarter. I normally wear the quarters video jumper when I'm doing it, so I'm trying to emulate my clients.
Remember the old days of like being a recruiter and like people going out to like Next and getting the shirt and tie combos and the suits and...
I made a joke last night.
Charles Tyrrell.
For anyone who doesn't know Australia won't laugh, but I was like, my first suit in my Randstad photo was from the Big W. And it is like the Big W is like, it's worse than Primark, I think. It's like...
Oh, it's like... Have we got Target in the UK? No. Matalan.
TK, Matalan. Yeah, beautiful. So that was my
Johnny
white
Vegas.
shirt combo.
Oh, no, that was... What's Johnny Vegas? That was Giacomo.
Giacomo. Yeah, that was Johnny Vegas and Flintoff.
Yeah.
I think.
Giacomo.
So, yeah, you landed in Melbourne from Brisbane last night. Obviously, we got our boardroom event for my clients tomorrow, which I'm super excited about. We've had you on the show. For people who don't know you, haven't listened to the first one, just give us the quick overview of the business, and then we're just going to chew the fat.
Yeah, really high level. Kevin Warner, my business partner, and I co-founded Talesca 2.5 years ago. Originally, we focused purely on renewable energy, ESG, and sustainability. We've grown a little bit, and we sort of diversified markets. So we're now very much focused on what we call critical infrastructure. So things you can't turn off: energy, water, data centers, defense, and
recession-proof.
Well, fingers crossed, and then keeping our pulse in the sustainability sector, but into those industries. So, yeah, it's been 2.5 years of fun, of hard work, and lots of learning on the way.
Yeah, mate, it's been good watching you guys, from afar, and it's good to see you in person. See you in Australia. Obviously, not Australian, Scottish.
Not Australian, Scottish. Yeah, married an Australian.
So, honestly, I feel like I'm in Manchester today, though.
Yeah,
it's that bad.
See, it's funny, right? Because all the Brits moved to Australia. Like, you did the same. Like, you moved to Melbourne. I'm like, of all the places you're going to move to Australia, like move somewhere like Brizzy's, like bit smaller, sunny, it's tropical. I was in Melbourne yesterday. It's like being in London. It was great and windy. And
I completely agree. I messed that up. Totally messed that up.
What's it like being back? Because your recruitment career started in Australia.
It started in Melbourne, where I'm staying this week, and a lot of my customers, everything I'm doing is around Pitt Street, and that's where Randstad's Sydney office was, and the Melbourne thing is to send people to Sydney within the first month. So I think I started on like the 5th of May. I remember the 11th of June was when I went up to Sydney. I got like the red-eye flight in the morning, and I was super excited. I remember, but I knew nothing. In my little Big W suit, or big W suit, oversized suit, I knew absolutely nothing. I remember the emotions I had back then, if I'm really honest, were quite... they weren't that... I've not got the fondest memories of feeling like really skint. I'd been traveling. I came to Australia with nothing. I remember just like the first day in the base hostel in Melbourne. It's like $5, mate, for a towel. I was like, okay, $5 for a
the
locker
base hostel.
key.
That was by the Central Station.
It's in St Kilda. It's near where all the English go. But $5 for a towel, $5 for water, $5 for a padlock. I'm like, that's like a week in Thailand. Yeah. So I remember being in very emotional skin, living in worse conditions in this terrible flat we got, and
hungover post Thailand.
Yeah, I wasn't actually enjoying it that much. And then I remember getting the job in recruitment and thinking, I was a school teacher, one of the actually PE teacher. Actually in Australia, weather is better, and you think, I've just come from working outside and now I'm in this suit in this office, and I just didn't get it. And I remember being in Sydney thinking, is this really for me? Like on this training program, thinking, fucking hell, I'm not sure this is for me. Whereas coming back now, 14 years later, done what I've done. I feel good about my business. I feel good about my life. I feel settled in almost every way. I've got customers here. It's been incredible. It's been a strange emotion, but it just feels like, I feel like I've not been away for too long, especially when you see people you know as well.
But I've got a couple on that. Just a couple of questions. When you're a PE teacher, were you the type of PE teacher who would wear shorts 365 days of the year? Or did you ever?
No,
I was a
tracky bottom.
You weren't one of the old school PE teachers.
No.
Mate, and the second one, I'm interested because obviously you're UK based, right? And I'm from the UK. Still love Edinburgh. Still love Scotland, but I do struggle for the UK. I left now 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Went to Hong Kong, Saudi, Australia. Like, do you feel it's more positive here? Do you feel people have a different outlook? Have you noticed anything like that?
I wouldn't say in the recruitment owner community it feels that different because everyone's English here anyway, pretty much. I wouldn't say it feels that different at all. I'd say I don't think I would have perhaps got the turnout in any of the city that I got last night. So last night I hosted an event. We originally booked a room for 50 seats and we blew the back out of that in like 3 hours.
Awesome.
Now, you never know if people are actually going to turn up. So I was hesitant, but I upgraded it to 80. And then on the day we had like 150 people signed up and I upgraded it to 100. And then we thought, oh, fucking hell, people are going to come at 6 p.m. They're going to want, so we got canapes and we added drinks and it was worth it. We had I think we had about 105 people turn up. It was packed. People stood up at the back. It was incredible. I don't know if, like what I love about Australia, Melbourne, Sydney are all the only cities I know, but they're walkable, right?
Yeah.
Like London's not walkable. Like Manchester's walkable. They're a bit like Manchester or Birmingham or Liverpool. Like you can literally get around. And I felt like genuinely it was pissing down last night. It was proper English weather and people were there. And I'm not convinced that if I went to any of the cities, I think I could get a good turnout in a lot of cities based on the network I've got. And, I've been to Dubai and I do these cool things, but I thought it was incredible. So I don't know, maybe there is an energy here that they appreciate the UK's knowledge and I think there's an appreciation here that things happen last because it's like the end of the train line.
That's so true, yeah, in the world. Man.
Yeah, things just happen. So
behind.
Maybe because I'm coming from England and people have never had, I speak at the expos back home all the time. Yeah. I've never spoken here live.
But mate, to be fair, it's probably it's a massive compliment to like the work you're doing, right? And I guess it's almost like the perfect advert for Hoxo, right? Because he's talking about building a brand and an exposure, right? And everyone in Australia knows who you are through LinkedIn and stuff you've done. Yeah. And then you get here and 150 people turn up. So it's a perfect advert for how powerful like personal branding can be. And
it's funny because
the process
obviously how long have you been working with us now? Like 3 years? 2
years.
It's funny because the reality is no one really signs with Hoxo unless they know me.
Yeah.
No one.
I said it to you last night.
Yeah, they come through we don't ring people out of the blue, like we don't do it. So anyone who comes to us has interacted with our brand, our downloads, whatever. They come to events. So for them to say, I don't know if this will work, it's quite funny because you're like, well, you wouldn't be here if it didn't work. We wouldn't even be on this chat. Like, I didn't ring you. I didn't call you out of the blue. Yeah. Like you interacted with me. So it is funny. Obviously then you get people who say, well, yeah, but you work with recruiters and they're all on LinkedIn. It's not the same in my industry. But that's when I can go, well, I've got Dan and I've got Chris and I've got Pete and I've got all these different people that have done it in every sector you can think of. So a lot of people just have limited beliefs of what they're capable of.
Yeah, it 100% works. Like I've seen it. I think the really good point you made last night is like you still got to do the work. Like you can teach people the program, the theory, the steps to follow. But yeah, if you don't do it,
but isn't that what recruitment's all about? Before anyone's wondering what's going on here, we decided today we're just going to chat for an hour, and you're going to ping me with as many questions as I ping you, right?
Yeah,
which I'm quite excited about. Second time I've kind of been on the other side of my own show, but the other one was in Dubai, a bit similar kind of week. But what is it not the same in recruitment in almost everything that people do? That it's about just doing the simple things consistently well over time, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think
no one's ever come in and done really well in this industry without doing the work. No,
I think you have to have a really good work ethic. I think you have to have a good work ethic. Oh, can't speak. A good work ethic on the days you don't want to do it because every day you have to step up and follow the process. But the best bit of advice I got when I set the business, and it sticks true, is like just be less shit than everyone else. And like it sounds like so simple. And like obviously we're really trying to do something different, and we can get into that, and we aspire to be really good. But even if you just like that's your sort of mantra, like just work hard, be less shit than the people beside me, you'll fly in this industry.
Yeah, but if you go back to the LinkedIn stuff, it's exactly the same. Like
100%.
there's days where I don't want to post.
Yeah.
Like today, I've been in meetings since 8 o'clock this morning. It's now 4:30 Australian time. I've not had food since breakfast. I've not had a gap. I've been, just walked through a rainy city on the phone trying to do as much as I can, but I've managed to get a post out because I see it as like fundamentally, just like business development is, or I see it as an absolute must have.
It gets to that point, and I'm probably the same now. When, if you're training, I used to play sport, right? And you get, obviously you can, not anymore in pretty horrific shape, but training back in the day, you trained, and you'd feel guilty if you didn't train.
Yeah, of course.
And it would linger. So it's almost like you get to the habit of a LinkedIn posting and LinkedIn content. If you haven't done it, it niggles at you. You're like, I need to stop here and like get something out, or be better prepared and schedule and do it that way. But it's definitely consistency, and the more you do it, the easier it gets.
I think there's still a little bit of that. There's probably more of an acceptance that this stuff works now. It's more, do I really want to do it? Some people just don't want to do it, and I'm like, okay. But there's also there's two camps in this personal branding space. There's people like you and I that I believe are very good salespeople, recruiters first, and then we've added that layer on top. And then you get people that I've never really liked recruitment, or I've never even done recruitment, and they then add the branding layer on top. I'm not going to name them, but I know a few people who've got incredible brands, but they can't make money out of it. They're just not, they don't have that. So they want to sit behind LinkedIn, but they don't make any money. And then for me, it's like, if I didn't fundamentally make money out of this in the first 12 months, I probably wouldn't have carried on doing it. I had to see results. Now, did I want results within a week? No, but I knew it was going to pay off. And because I'm able to then take those calls one-on-one and do what I do best. Do you think, because that is, again, a bit of a leading question as to what I think, but I think when people live in Dubai and they live in Australia and they move to the US, they get a slightly warped view of the UK. They think the UK is like fucking guns on every street and everyone's miserable, and we're like, they go back to thinking we're like chimney sweeps. Whereas I think, I don't quite agree with that, but I want your opinion first.
No, so the longer you go away, I think the more you're aware of it, and it depends where you live, right? And I was in Hong Kong for 5.5 years, right? And Hong Kong is electric, but it's positive. People want to work hard, play hard. If you opened a business in Hong Kong, people are queuing up at your door to help you. How can I help you? Can I give you some work? Like, there's a real sort of, and it's maybe that expat mentality, but it's the whole like, we all want to succeed. We want to do well. The US is very much like that. I think Dubai is like that. First of all, the weather makes a difference, right?
I think that's huge.
Massive. Like,
we can't get around.
Yeah, and if I'm having a bad day in Brisbane, I walk around and more often not, the sun's shining. I'm like, fuck, life's not that bad. Like, the sun's shining, and it makes you feel good. There's that bit, but there is something that the more I've gone back to the UK and I get back, and like, the first thing you hear is people moan. Like, I don't know, and I probably sound like bad here, sledging the UK, but people just. I find when you go back, the first comment on anything is never positive.
Yeah, I agree.
It's never
guess who's dead mindset.
It's never a positive. But mate, you told the story the other day when you first moved back, and you were talking about your travels, and you're waxing lyrical about Cambodia, and your mate's like, "Hey, Ando, I bought a new dog." Yeah, you're just like,
he interrupted my story about Cambodia to go, look, this is better. He used the phrase, "This is better." Yeah,
mate, it can be sad because, like, I think again, for people who have left the UK and are building life in Dubai or wherever it is, you want to come back and share your story and share your journey, but you start telling it and people look at you like, shut. Like, I don't like, why are you showing off? And you're not. You're just trying to tell people what you've been doing in your life.
Here's my take on it, and I do actually agree with what you've said there, but I do think that the longer you're away, the more warped you get.
Probably.
And actually, when you're at home, what you have to do in the UK is you have to find your tribe. Like, I think in Australia or Dubai, you're probably surrounded by like-minded people anyway. In the UK, you got to find it. So for me, being around, most of my time is speaking to recruitment founders on calls or in meetings. I don't think they're that different in the UK as they are in Dubai and Australia. They're already at that, like, and then outside of work, you've got to distance yourself from people that bring you down. Again, I'm not going to name them, but there's people who've been in my life over the last 10, 15 years that I don't spend that much time with. They don't add much.
Yeah.
Whereas I've got a group around me, like, Keith, who I always talk about, the alcohol-free coach, who, I've got like 5 really good mates that are entrepreneurs, that don't drink, that meet to run. We're there in like the Peak District at 6:30 a.m. watching the sunrise on a Saturday, and like, that is positivity.
Yeah.
So I found my tribe in the UK. And sometimes me and Keith talk about it quite a lot. You know, it's like, would upping and leaving to Dubai or to Australia or the US, would it actually beat this?
Yeah.
Would it beat this? Would it make any difference? Like, is the weather as important? I mean, I'm looking at the Middle East now, so I'm
the challenge you've got when you do make that move, and why people often don't stick it out, is that moving to a country is difficult, right? And it takes time, and you get there in like 4 months in, 6 months, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm settling, and you haven't really. But it can take like you've still got to find your tribe.
Yeah,
it can take a year, 18 months to really find your tribe, your tribe and settle. But yeah, so maybe I think you're probably right about the warp version. And finding your people, but yeah, maybe it's the weather. I don't know, but I just feel
maybe this conversation could be a bit about like, you know, that. I mean, we want to talk a bit about AI and all sorts, but like the expat, you know, is the grass greener?
I've lived it, and I've lived in, like, you know, from my own personal experience, like Hong Kong is very much like an expat. It was, it's changed slightly, but very much an expat community. Saudi was like expats on steroids because you're living in compounds, you're surrounded by expats, and it's very, you know, it's a proper old school expat community. I think I've got some incredible lifelong friends in the UK, right? You go to school with, uni with, and they're your mates. I think some of the friends I've made in my travels are incredibly close because you have that automatic bond, like you arrive in a new place, everyone's been through
both
it.
Gone together at that point, chosen.
Or you're all away from your families at Christmas. You have these like almost like tighter in common. I think that brings people together, and maybe that's where that whole positivity and support thing comes in work as well. I mean, it's even simple things like, you know, if I pitched up in London tomorrow and set up a business, it's the whole thing of trying to get in front of people, trying to get past gatekeepers, blah blah blah, which I'm sure is probably still there. You know, it was a bit of a joke. Like, Australians would meet anyone for a coffee. Like, literally, you could be like, "Do you want to meet for a coffee?" I'll be like, "Yeah, put in a diary," and they'd be like, "Why are we meeting?" But like the difference is, do you know what I mean? Like, and yeah, I feel like,
well, again, I think depends on what market you. I moved to London and I got a job in the Lloyd's of London insurance market, and it was incredibly similar to the Melbourne market.
Were you in your pinstripe suit down in Borough Market?
Exactly. That wasn't Borough Market; it was Leadenhall Market. Yeah, I was in Leadenhall Market, Lime Street. You know, Great Church,
double breast suit central.
I didn't have the stripey at the beginning. I got one. I think.
You ever have a double breaster?
I had a double breaster.
All the old boys had the double breasters,
didn't they? You know, shoe shine on the morning when you go in.
The Winchester collars, the white collars.
Yeah, but you'd go in. I never wore that. But I went in and. It was literally, let's just have coffee. And I was having 6, 7. I didn't even know what decaf was back then either. So I was literally wired. I was fucking wired. But I think I was quite clever and strategic that when I interviewed with like Nigel Frank, and I interviewed with GCS, and I interviewed with Venquist, and I chose Venquist because even though perhaps the salary was a worse salary, and the others were, the billers they were telling me about were insane. Like Microsoft Dynamics guys and Nigel Frank were doing like, I don't know, they were billing $1 million. And I was like, but I'm going to be sat in a box, probably working like I do now, international work. Whereas I was like, Melbourne, I loved getting up, walking through the city, having a coffee.
Getting the buzz.
And this was what they sold me. You're going to get up. And they did. We literally spent our days trekking around the city, but in 1 square mile, which again, Melbourne Victorian government was in 1 square mile. It was very similar. So I also think as well, an expat is someone who's been through something, you know, and wants to better it. They've took a choice to go.
Yeah.
But I did meet a few people when I lived here that I felt like were running away from the UK.
Yeah, 100%.
And I wasn't one of them guys. Like, they'd look at you and like, I'm never going home, mate. Never going home. I'm like, all right. My family's all right.
There's a saying in Hong Kong that was like, failed in London, try Hong Kong, right? And there's loads of people in the run. I think what's interesting, I've read a few studies about it, is if people have been, we're going down a big expat route here, it's quite interesting. People who have been expats, when they return, they actually end up hanging out with former expats. So you end up having more in common with people who are expats. And I look at my friendship circle in Brisbane, 90% of them are expats. Either people have lived in Asia with us and have moved back, who are Aussies, or people have moved to Brisbane from New Zealand or over the UK. But again, we've all got that thing in common, which kind of brings us together, right? So it's an interesting dynamic.
But I think you add that in with recruitment owners who are all, most are quite similar, like decent billers, got to a certain point, wanted to do it for themselves. You get the odd one that's completely wired another way, but most are pretty cool people. Like, I genuinely, one thing I said when I left recruitment to do what I do now, I got on really well with the insurance market, but nowhere near like I do with you. Like I've got friendships, I'd say, in the recruitment space where we'd have sat side by side in the past.
Yeah.
So that is, for me, that network, I love the fact I can plug into that. And you go to any city in the world, you'll find English recruitment owners or British recruitment owners. That I feel quite lucky to have that. And you know, whether they're in Dubai or whether they're in America, whatever, they've still usually come from a very similar stock of training, which is cool.
But I think on the subject of recruitment, because I think having you here is pretty lucky, because you know, arguably no one speaks to more recruitment owners than you on a weekly, monthly basis, like globally. So, like, mate, give us your thoughts. Like, what is going on? Because you hear all sorts, right? You hear like UK is difficult, Australia is difficult, like AI is coming in, everyone's trying to work it out. And it feels for a lot of, you know, recruitment was pretty solid. We came through COVID, came out of COVID, and there was sort of some sort of stability coming back, and suddenly it's all like blown up again, good and bad. But like, what do you see is happening? What are people feeling? Like, how do you? It's an open-ended question, but how do you sum up the state of it at the moment?
I'd say there's definitely fear / opportunity and anxiety with excitement. Like it's like a mix, and I think there's kind of two camps. There's people that are like excited about learning what's coming, and there's people that are just ignoring it. And I think
there's more people than ignoring.
Probably, yeah, definitely. But they're still fearful. The ones who are ignoring it are fearful. And I look at, I've done a lot of research into like, what are the big corporations doing?
So just to put that, so we say like the biggest talking point in the industry at the minute is obviously AI.
AI. It's everywhere. Yeah. The Recruitment Agency Expo in London was mental. It was actually it was like vomit of AI. To talk about anything but AI, you would have stood out. Oh. Yeah, you would have stood out. And I didn't actually get to talk this time, which was disappointing. I was there, but I didn't get to talk. Well, you know, our product is powered by AI now, but it's still not. I genuinely 100% believe this, that without a brand, AI is not going to be it's not going to maximize anything from an outreach perspective, because people are not going to trust you and just not going to trust you at scale.
Are you seeing a lot of are you seeing recruitment companies trying to like automate calls and cold calling? And
no, there's more talking about it than doing it. Not many people are doing it at all, but people are looking into it. Everyone's got like an AI kind of agenda, which is, again, some are seeing it as like a panic. I've got to do it now. Some are level-headedly looking into it. But again, the bit that I keep talking about is, what are your clients doing?
Yeah.
Because if you're spending X amount, they're spending more. And at our recent boardroom event in London, when we had Craig Whiting talking, one of my clients I think he's one of the most knowledgeable. And you break into Craig's brain around this, and it's incredible. And he recruits senior tech people. So he's listening to like the head of innovation at Amazon and all these people. And he's like, the techies believe they're cutting the humans out. They are absolutely convinced when they're not going to need human beings for most of what recruiters do. So he's like, you know, they believe they're going to get rid of us, or get rid of most of us.
Industry.
The tech industry thinks, yeah, they'll replace. Like if you look at some of the, I think, is it Mercure, the first tech recruitment business, $1 billion backing, and there's so much going on. The thing that I believe is, you know, recruiters have got to hold on to is that with the way you work being one of the most important top 3 decisions in your life, I don't really see a world where people completely put that into the hands of AI.
No.
I think 80 to 90% of the process could be powered by AI, but it isn't like booking a holiday. You know?
No.
It's not like I'm going to that Barbados. Even buying a house. I mean, maybe you will, but I still think buying a house is something that I'd love to get rid of solicitors and all that. There's so much I'd love to get rid of, but you'd still love to speak to a really knowledgeable person who can be like, you know, help you make that right decision, I think. And it's the same sort of thing with your job.
You want the advice, right? If you're going to buy a house in the neighborhood you didn't know, but you had a mate lived in the neighborhood, you're like, right, what's it like here? What
there's just stuff that AI will never be able to know. But I do think, I think if you don't expect it's going to eat some of your clients' teams, if you don't think your clients are working out how they can eradicate you, then you're seriously naive.
Do you think it's potentially like a distraction for some?
Yeah, big time.
Like recruiters are trying to probably take their eye off the day-to-day and trying to solve the world's problems by creating...
But you've got to do both. That's the reality. You've got to have an eye on it, but you've got to keep doing what's always worked. You've got to keep working the roles. You've got to keep delivering. But you do need to... I keep saying this, chair the conversation. Ask every candidate, ask every client, where do you think your team, your role is going in the next 2-3 years? And they should have a better angle on what's happening for them than you. But if you ask that to all the people in your market, you'll suddenly have a market view, which is the sort of thing I ask, right? Yeah. What are you doing to solve AI? I know that most people are looking at note takers. They're looking at admin right now. Admin is the number one.
Note takers.
This week in Australia, I was on one with I'd say a pretty innovative recruitment owner, and she was blown away. What is that in the call in the room? I was like, you don't know what this is? She was like, nope. I was like, so not everyone's doing it.
On a Zoom call, 4 people and 6 bloody AI.
I know, yeah. I do like a group call in my boot camps and stuff, and there's more AI takers than people. It's fucking nuts.
Because they still turn out, don't they?
Yeah, they're there. They're always there.
But I'll tell you what, we're pretty funny. We're not funny, but we have them, and sometimes we'll obviously jump on Teams and make an introduction for an interview if it's an online interview, and sometimes the note takers stay in there and you can get the whole interview recorded, which is quite good for immediate feedback.
Is there no way you could do that, like almost lead with that though? Is it like instead of doing it in like a hidden way, you'd be like,
we tell them, we say to them, look, this is here, but sometimes some people kick it out, some people leave it in.
Well, could you not lead with, can you please leave it in? That way
we can all get feedback. And
we all get the feedback. So we've just, again, what we're doing here is we're saying the job doesn't change.
Yeah.
We put people in front of companies, they review, we should be screening first. They should review the best people. They want to interview them, whether it's virtually, in person, whatever. We need instant feedback from both parties so that we can manage the process. That would be an absolute game changer. You'd still want the call with the others to see what their perception is.
I think,
But to get that summary quick and be able to listen to it and have your own opinion.
I agree. I think
that'd be great.
We've ever challenged around that is like what's open and what's closed, right? Because then there would be some conversations depending on organizations and confidential projects. If it's a confidential role and it's a replacement, I guess there's security issues around that.
Yeah, there is.
Where
and
does information go? And I think that's the one thing I'm learning about AI quickly is open versus closed. And if you start chucking everything through ChatGPT, be aware of it. It's open and it's out there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's. So what are you doing then? Let's talk. What are you doing right now in your business? How is it changing what you were doing a year ago?
It's not changing. I would say. I think we're probably ahead of the game. I feel like we're ahead of it to a degree, and I say that because like AI in one half scares me a little bit because I went down the whole death spiral when it first came out and listening to the guy from Google and
Mo Gawad and 20 years time will either be chilling on the beach or on the run from like Skynet. Is it Terminator 2 Skynet? Yeah. And so at first I was like, oh god, this is horrific, and then sort of had to come off it for a bit, and then it's here. We need to use it, and I think it's going to be pretty awesome for the industry in terms of it's going to level the industry for the first time. Internal talent teams, business leaders, recruitment companies, everyone's got the same tools for the first time ever, the same information, the same access, everything. So now it actually becomes how good are you and what value you can add. And we sort of took that approach when we founded Talesca. We wanted to be super, super consultative. We run a really, I think, a pretty cool process. It's heavily video based. There's lots of touch points of clients. We try and find a way to add value every step of the process. The placement is the end result of a really consultative process. So we're ahead of the curve in that way, because I think the only way you survive now in recruitment is everyone's going to automate the processes. Everyone will automate researches. All the admin will be automated. So therefore, how do you add value? And I think those people who work in... Isn't it what you do with the time saved?
But I think the time saved, but I think there's a lot of people in this industry, and it's probably my biggest gripe with the industry is a lot of people in the industry who, and probably not their own fault, of sitting in seats. They've been poorly trained by poorly trained managers and so on and so forth, right? Like I heard a story every day about a recruitment consultant. Another firm was like, "Oh, what we'll do is we'll send some stocking fillers. Like we'll send like 3 really shit CVs, and then we'll send a really good one at the end so they stand out." And I'm just like, head and hands, like that is horrific. Going back to that, I think people who don't know how to consult will really struggle, because you have to be able to sit in front of a client now and add some counsel, add some advice, like shape the business. I had a great story of a client 2 weeks ago, and we were retained in a role, and I was like, you don't need this role. You should actually create this role for your business and go down this route. And to be fair, they listened and they've done it, and we've created a whole new sort of business function, which is really cool to be involved in. But I think that's the level of detail we now need to be able to provide support at in detail. And I think those who can are going to struggle. And I feel like that consulting muscle's like been lost, because a lot of that's because of COVID, right? When everyone started working at home. Like if you look back to when you started in recruitment, you learned by osmosis, right? You'd follow your director, your team leader to meetings, right? And you'd, for the first year and a half, or you probably sit and watch how they operate in a meeting, right? But walking to that meeting and walking back, you had debriefs with your manager, your boss. You were learning. That doesn't exist anymore, right?
Yeah.
So you've got this whole generation of recruiters, say, who started in the early 20s to now, who don't know how to properly control a process, really. They don't know how to add value to a client, really, other than send CVs, and they don't know how to influence properly, to negotiate, to really add that value piece.
A message from today's episode sponsor, Untapped. Untapped are the market leader and go-to agency for finding and hiring elite offshore talent into the UK, US, and Australian-based recruitment agency market. Now, I don't partner with sponsors I don't believe in myself, and Untapped are someone I've personally used to build the team at Hoxo, and it's been a game changer. No one else we've worked with can compete with both the quality of the network and the time to hire, and the impact they've had on our business has been insane. From hiring, from consulting, from advice, they're a premium team that you can trust, and you're guaranteed to access a network of top-tier international talent that could be right for your business. Look, they interview over 3,000 candidates and put them through a 4-stage interview online every single month, and they only represent the top 1%. So you're going to get a thorough service at speed. So if you're looking at international hiring where you're looking at getting up to 70% less in terms of cost for equivalent UK member of staff in both recruitment and back office roles, then it's a complete no-brainer. All right, you're going to love it. So they are currently showing a waiting list for their next cohort of hiring, and it's almost full. If you'd like to join the waiting list, then click on the link in the show notes and take it from there. Good luck.
I do think you're right. Like all of the things you just said, but for example, Craig, who I mentioned, who I probably will bring back on for this kind of chat, you know, he's getting his team remotely in Devon to do like £500,000 billing a year, right? Without ever working together, because he's documented everything.
Yeah.
And he's meticulous with the time they
process.
Yeah. You know, we could afford to have been an industry of not writing shit down. You know, if you look at admin in the CRM and all that, like it was always an afterthought. You could just say, look, I'll fucking figure it out on the way to the meeting. Correct. We'll chat about that after. And the bit of training was, while your boss was having a fag and you were holding a coffee or whatever, you can't do that. So you have to be better. You have to be better. You have to be organized. But isn't it like the CRM? I love it. Everyone's like, no admin. You know, I talk about Atlas on this and it's wicked. All the no admin, notes going in. Great. And that is
still the quality of a note. Like you can still, like database CRM, what you put in is what you get out. So
but the quality of the notes will be perfect because of AI. It should be. I mean, Fathom is unreal in terms of the quality. But my question is,
to challenge that, if you're not having a good enough conversation, the note's shit. Because if you haven't asked the right questions, you haven't gone to the right.
But it'll still get what you did say, which is better than what you've had before, right?
True.
But my point is, if you've never put admin in properly, you've never looked at it. You've not even got a business that analyzes it. Yeah. So the first thing is, can we get data in? And then it's teaching people how to analyze it. And they're just not gonna look. So we have like absolute crystal clear data on where we are from a, you know, sales perspective and ratios and things like that all the time. But equally, same as we've built on a recruitment background, like our HubSpot data and, you know, note taking is traditionally not great. It's better now because we've got Fathom just sinks in. But do I sit there reading that and having some form of analysis process on it right now? No.
So, but I have a suspicion that in 5 years' time will be a really data-led industry, and I think the commercial models around recruitment will change. I kind of think contingent recruitment won't exist because you won't need it, because that sort of high-volume process stuff, check the CV, will be done. I actually think we might get to a point where you're almost like retained by clients to provide monthly market information, like real-time salaries, real-time movements, what's going on, and still placement fees. But the placement stuff would be one element of the other products you provide. Like I feel like it may go that way, because you'll have this
big
middle ground of
better quality research done by AI than you. Like in terms of
but then you've got to be able to interpret the research, right? You can have the best research in the world, but how do you interpret the research? And a lot of that stuff. And I still think the one thing.
See, the bit I think is going to happen is AI is not going to go out and sit and have a coffee with someone.
This is it.
I think we're going to go back to the recruiter's role. Will get back to the fundamentals of seeing people, and it'll be more influence led. Like AI isn't going to be able to. It can try and influence, but I think a person looking in your eyes and going, "We'll have more value than."
And I think, it sounds silly to say, and people disagree, but I think the number of recruiters out there who don't realize how much knowledge you actually have in their head from all these conversations, and then actually think, "Oh my God, I've got all this knowledge. This is a value add to the client. I should be sharing this." We almost don't join the dots, and that's the piece that becomes valuable. Is like, right, we've seen these trends in the market. You're out there. What's actually happening? What's this person saying? What's this company doing? And we're little bubbles of knowledge, and it frustrates me because the clients don't get it, and I still think the industry's. I'm really digressing now, but I feel the industry's got the recruitment industry needs to get better at educating clients about how to use it.
That's 100%.
And we're dreadful at it.
Because the industry's grown up by saying yes, Mr. Client, putting them on a pedestal and doing whatever they, and then running around like a dick when they don't even know what they're looking for. But
then when you actually go and sit sometimes with a client and be like, "Do you know how recruitment industries work?" And they're like, "Not really." I'm like, "Well, here's what's happened. Someone's come out and they've been KPI'd in job flow and they've been told to have 15 jobs on their desk. So they've got your job. They've promised you the world. And then they've gone back and the same manager's been like, you've got 15 jobs on your desk. You can no way you can fill all those this month. Pick your top 5, focus on those." I'm like, so you're sat in your office waiting for these CVs. You don't realize your sort of job requirements going up and down this priority list. And then you get chucked some CVs at the end of it to keep you happy. And they're like, "Oh, really?" I'm like, because no one's told them. It's like a big secret.
Well, I got the same chat the other day of a lawyer, because I was saying like conveyance law is the worst when you're buying a house. And he said, "Well, do you know what they do?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, they have a pile of paper, literally a pile of paper, where like, let's say you've got a land registry question, and then they'll deal with it. They'll send the emails, they'll do whatever. They'll ask the other solicitor on the other side the question, and then they put the pile to the bottom. So then they have to get through like 400 pieces of paper, regardless of how quick the other one comes back, before they even address it again. And it's just like a big loop of paper, which I was like, wow. And then if you look at marketing, the reason I shut Hoxo's marketing agency down was because it was exactly like what you said. Like, I figured out the model was broken, and I didn't feel like I could fix it based on a few factors, right? So number one was the recruitment industry's appetite to spending on marketing, especially on people and processes and content, was not great. So where a tech company might put an agency on a £10,000 a month retainer, a recruiter might put 2,000. So coming from a recruitment background where you want maybe 15 to 20 grand per head per recruiter, I'm thinking the same for my account managers to be profitable. If you're paying me £2,000 a month and I've got an account manager, I need to put 8 customers to 10 on that. So for £2,000 a month, you're getting an eighth of a person who might have the design and copy team behind them, but their attention, their focus, it's the same. And then what happens is the person here gets burnt out because they're working on loads of shit and they're not getting it, and they're not feeling like they're fulfilling anything. The customer's underwhelmed.
Yeah. It's a broken model.
So like it just, and even now I can't believe people are still buying marketing retainers or selling them, and they just don't work fundamentally. The only way they'd work is if you have someone who's so credible that says, "Look, you're going to pay us fucking loads of money and we're going to deliver." And then you might, account manager might have 1 or 2 customers charging 10 grand each. But it's in this industry that's why we flipped to the consulting model, because we're like, if we can embed it in your business, 1, costs are lower. 2, it's in your ecosystem. You're not relying on us. And 3, it's a better business for us. Like, our team are happier.
Consultants, like, once you use a consultant, you're relying on more and more on the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. Mate, it's such a good point about the broken model. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but like, I love this industry, probably too much, but it frustrates me so much as well because everyone talks about improving it, but then people aren't willing to put their head above the parapet. I've been to conferences and events, and I often speak up, and I think like the biggest problem with recruitment industry is contingent recruitment fees, right? Because they actually encourage bad behavior. They encourage peer service, they encourage bad behavior, they encourage over cowboy stuff. People are like, yeah, totally agree. Like, we need to go and, all start working, retained or engaged. I'm like, well, cool. Like, we're doing it. Like, but everyone has to do it. But there's not enough people willing to do it. Everyone wants. But
do you not want some? Do you want everyone selling that, or do you?
I think it's a rising boat lifts all tides. Like,
Right.
why wouldn't you?
Because if there is another option, then clients will still take that option. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but the other option, because clients are so used to that, right? But it's that option, the contingent option, is the one that causes often.
But surely, as
a
a retained recruiter, like it's good to have the rest focusing on what you know doesn't work, so that you can separate. If everyone did what you do, you might just blend in, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it does. But then also, like, it's tough, right? Because we go and speak to people like, oh, we've been burnt in the past with an engaged for a retainer, because you know that someone's just come and taken a retainer, and someone's just taking a retainer and going back and put the fee up at the desk, right? So then you have to take them through the whole process again of why not and how to do it.
That you can't fix that by making everyone retain, because that's just shit people.
Well, that's the thing, Rob. I think if clients were demanding that and that became the norm, then the shit people wouldn't be in the market, if that makes sense.
But it goes back to what I say, like personal branding. You know, one of the benefits obviously is inbound and all that, but it also forces good practice.
Yeah.
Because if someone like you is on LinkedIn every single day, and then you just let people down, and you go back to LinkedIn the next day, those people are going to start commenting.
Mate, it's funny you say that, because I'll put a post on LinkedIn about, like ghosting and thing, and I'm like, oh, fuck, I ghosted that person like a year and a half ago or like 4 years ago. And you get older and your behaviors change and your standards change. But I put it out, I'm like, someone's going to comment on this, being like, you didn't call me back 3 years ago, and it does make But
you've got to rise up, like Stuart Mitchell, Carl Winterbottom, all these clients I work with. That's what they say. Like the expectation that they're going to be good is on every interaction. Same with me. If my boot camp was crap, I'd get hammered. Our industry would absolutely tear me to shreds, like they do with Rectorex. Some Rectorex post and they get annihilated because our industry gets kicked, so they kick their suppliers. They love to kick their suppliers.
Yeah, it's funny. It's so true. Yeah, I mean, like recruiters. It's funny watching LinkedIn. Like, it's pretty sad to like how recruiters go after each other. I mean, I put a LinkedIn post up last year. I think it was over 100,000 whatever engagements on it. But I was like, recruitment's not a sales job; it's we're consultants, and like the divisiveness was like, you're an idiot. It's 100% sales. Like sell, and other people are like, nah, you're right. And it's just like. Yeah,
that's why you got 100,000.
Yeah, correct. Two sides of the fence, isn't it? In the industry, there's people who.
Well, I always say as you know, in the bootcamp, there's two ways to go about that. You can either go, let's settle the debate.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to put my opinion, but I know this is a big one. What do you think? Are you red pill or you blue pill? Are you perm or you contract? Are you consult or you sales? Or you can do what you did.
Mate, you can't use red pill and blue pill after adolescence now. It's all the emojis are too complicated.
Yeah, true. But if we look at your example, you can also put your own opinion out there, but you've got to be prepared that some of the negatives are going to feel like a personal attack, but they're just what the people.
I think you've got to. I think, like, for me, if you put in your personal brand that way, like, you've got to put your opinion on. And like, LinkedIn's funny, right? Because you pound away doing your content, and you're like, and every now and then you get a massive dopamine hit when you get you get a big one, right? You get loads of reactions, and you're like, buzzing up beating the algorithm, right? You plug away 2,000, 3,000 sort of consistently. But it's actually only when you go meet people that like, love your stuff on LinkedIn, like follow it, and you're like, I didn't even know you liked it.
Well, I've had that this week. Some of the people I've met,
isn't it?
some people I met this week, and they're like, I've been following you for years, and I'm like,
you never know. Yeah,
I don't know who they are, but it's amazing. I'm so grateful. But it forces good practice. I think or you're just an absolute arrogant lunatic if you don't care what people think. And
there's a few of them. There's a few of them out there.
Definitely a few of them. So, to answer your question again, or what is happening right now was the question. We've gone off on a right tangent, but I do think across the world, there's a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of recruitment clients, like thinking things are changing, but they're actually not changing that much. So they're fearful of what's happening because of all the noise, but actually right now, not a lot's changed, but there's definitely more coming. There's companies, your companies and your clients are going to be changing. So I think it's just about balancing those two things. Now, the bit that I want to talk about, which I talked about a lot yesterday, and I'm talking about is what's changing though with this whole movement is, and you've probably been through a bit of this recently, is recruitment owners' expectation or appreciation of success is changing. So when we started in the industry, headcount was the only measure of success.
Yeah.
Everyone would say, you got a recruitment company. How many heads you got? How many heads you got? First question.
Headcount's
how many people you got? Yeah. And actually, that has that has zero linear like translation to profit. And success, the lifestyle business is shit, people think, and all that. It's like, why? I know people doing $1 million.
It's personal choice, isn't it?
I know people doing $1 million a year, netting 800K, flying around the world every 6 to 8 weeks with their kids, love the job. Like they're doing the bit they love. They've got like a virtual assistant or resource or whatever doing the shit they don't want to do. And they're buzzing. Equally, there's lifestyle businesses where the guys are not having a good lifestyle and they're chained to their desk.
They're stressed, yeah.
But the bit that, like, why this podcast now exists is I really, really want people to listen to every week and find through the voices of others the path that does suit them. You know, actually, yeah, because for some people, scaling and exiting is actually what lights their fire. And I'm not here to say that they shouldn't do that. But I do think more. I did a poll and I got 93% said they are wanting to earn an exit rather than wait for an exit. Like if you look at Hoxo's strategy, me and Amma, we're 100% earn the exit. Yeah, but if you earn the exit, let's say we spend 5 years and we net multiple millions each, right? That's the goal. That doesn't mean
then what do you just pass it on?
But that doesn't mean it ends, does it? It doesn't end. Then as well, once I've got say a couple of million in the bank, I'll be a lot more comfortable to say, all right, I'll roll the dice on scale and exit. But if it doesn't work, I'm not losing it. Whereas if I just roll the dice without the earning in the first place, then I potentially put the next 10 years of all my kids' future on the line.
Yeah.
And I'm not prepared to do that. But I also know myself, and I have to be really honest that when Hoxo got to 40 staff, I didn't enjoy it. It just wasn't the day-to-day life I wanted. So how would you lead? Like, tell us your story in that respect and how you maybe your lens has evolved or hasn't evolved in terms of what you're doing it all for.
Mate, big old question. I think it probably changed, right? Like I think when you're building a business, right, you go through phases, and I'm probably more honest than most, right? And people don't talk about things, but no. We started out, we had a 10-year plan, we wanted to build scale, to exit, right? And we still do, so that's very much a plan, and we're on the way to doing that. I think, have we made some errors in the way? Yeah, we have. Have we been distracted by a few things in the way? Yeah, we have, but all great learning experience. And, don't get me wrong, every founder goes through it. There's times when you first start and it's just you and your business partner and you sort of, the fees are good and it's like, oh, this is awesome. But for us, I'm kind of like, yeah, it's great, but what we're building and what am I putting equity in? It's the same. We want to build something for the people who work for us. We want to do something in 10 years or whatever it is. We want everyone to benefit who's been on the journey with us. But I think for us, we want to build equity into something for the future and our kids and our kids. And I mean, maybe it is that whole thing of leaving a bit of a legacy.
Is that a company that still exists, or is that financial security? What is it?
Mate, that I don't know, right? Because we originally were like, yeah, we'll scale to exit, and now we sort of say we'll build towards an event. Because it could be, mate, we could get to, we said what we're in 2.5 years now, so 7.5 is scary. Hopefully it's going really well, right? You don't know what's around the corner, but hopefully it's going really well. Yeah. We build a brilliant business, but maybe at that point I'm like, I don't want to stop. And we might go and buy it. We might go and acquire or a different market. It doesn't have to be.
And my gut says you probably will be like that, knowing you.
I think it will, mate. You read these stories about people sell their business and they're fucking depressed the next days and bored. Like, so, yeah. I don't know. And the other thing I've learned in life is you make plans and life happens. So I'm more sort of like, let's just keep charging.
Yeah, I live in a 90-day world now. I've got my annual goals. I've got loose 5-year goals, nothing beyond that anymore. And I've got a 90-day goal that I live in.
Yeah.
And when I set Hoxo up, I had a 10-year plan myself, scale something, exit. And I'm 8 years in. It's gone like that. Boom. I think I'm nowhere near at that level I want to stop.
I think the one thing we are really aware of, and we want to build a high-performing team. And a high-performing team to me would be, it's not about, to your point, about the numbers. I'd rather have 20, 25 really, really good people versus 40 and you're carrying 15.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of companies do that because they get caught by the headcount thing and they have numbers, but actually there's probably 20% of your business who aren't doing anything. So why carry them? That's a vanity piece, right? That's not great. So we want to scale, we want to grow, but we're acutely aware of the people we want to bring in, the type of characters we want. And
how would you describe that?
We want hungry. Everyone said, but there's not many hungry people in the world anymore. No. It's just different. Like I think you could have a big tangent here in society, right, and social media and the way people consume and the convenience things. But I think, and mate, people talk about like Australia, the big thing. I mean, I remember coming through, right, like you got into Devils at 7:30 because you wanted to be there, and it was like you wanted to get before your boss. and everyone's like, that was dreadful. And bit me, I was like, it kind of wasn't, because like I wasn't miserable doing it. I was loving it. I was learning all these sort of things now that kind of died away because people are like, that's really bad. You can't do that. But I'm sort of like, well, what if people want to do that? What if people want to be hungry and come in and work harder than others? That's almost now seen as a bad thing, and people almost like guided away from it, right?
It's finding the people that do want
that, yeah,
and being honest with the fact that that's the business you want to create.
And we want, but another thing for us is, we're I go on all the time about being a consultant. We want people who can consult at a high level, who can add value, who can think outside the box, who are solutions focused, and when they sit with clients and they get given problems, not be like, cool, I understand. It's like, cool, like let's solve that problem together and have ideas and think outside the box. So we're asking for a lot probably, but there's people out there who are doing it. We've got people in our business who have that ability and are showing great.
It's finding
great
those
promise.
people early and locking them into the vision so that they are like fundamentally with you on that path and they don't go and do their own thing, because that's the risk in it. Someone good enough to do that for you is probably good enough to do it for themselves. So
yeah, and that's one thing we did at the start of this year. We sort of did our strategy for next year, and I realized we'd been going 2.5 years. We didn't have a clear mission statement.
Yeah,
which we now have, and we've got vision, which we now have. Everyone's aligned to that now, and I think that's one bit of advice. Not that I want to give advice. Still battling away here, but yeah, I think it's really crucial to have a North Star that everyone knows what they're buying into and what we're doing every day and what you're working towards.
I do think it's as your business ownership journey goes on, you keep having, there's like steps to it. So you go through you're on a journey and then suddenly it seems to stop and you level out and then you're like, right, now we need to rejig it. And I feel like even we did that recently, me and Amma. So like we were in a business, we had a process in the business where Amma was leading all the sales and I was sat behind doing all the back end boardroom and lead. Start of this year, we were like, what would happen if I was back in with him?
Yeah.
I'm still doing the back end to a degree, but what if I was back in with him? If the two of us were side by side, meeting customers, doing the bit that we love the most. And
I mean, I said that to you last night, and it's I've never met Amma, and it's absolutely no disrespect to Amma, right? But I think people associate Hoxo with you, because they see your stuff.
Is it a brand?
The brand, right? And so I think the expectation is when you work with Hoxo, you're working with you, right? Yeah. And I think like it makes sense to have you probably back in that seat. Yeah. We saw that last night, mate. 100 people turned up.
Yeah. And
because they want to see if it's real.
Being very externally focused, not as much internally focused, for me and Amma has been a game changer.
Yeah.
Business is going really well. And again, I get energy from that. I spoke about this last night. Like, too many people, I think, from all of my experience, all the conversations, they're trying to build something that they think other people have told them they should build. And they spend their time doing the things that they don't actually get energy from. So, a lot of people don't get energy from candidate resourcing anymore. So I do think it's really worth investing in that, getting that off your plate, finding somebody who's going to do that all day. But most people I deal with get energy from clients.
Yeah.
More so than their internal teams.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, Simon Hare, someone like that who is, you can see when he's in there with his own team. I was in their office first thing Monday, Tuesday. They are buzzing and he loves it. Like, there's some people, he gets his energy from that. But personally, I like the Hoxo team stuff. I get, great people I've got in my team. I want to spend 80% of my time externally with clients.
I mean, I think you make a really valid point there about, and something I was guilty of probably in the early days and I've stopped it now is worrying about what other people are doing. And you sit and worry and you try and validate, and actually, you read stuff in reports, and I was like, I knew that 6 months ago. I should have just backed myself. Like, I thought that a year ago. I knew I was right. Should have backed myself. And I think that's the big thing when you're trying to grow a business of any kind. But I think in recruitment too, because people compare, like, oh, why is that person billing more than me? Or why is that company bigger than ours? Or what are they doing to forget that? But just keep your head down and focus on yourself and what you're doing well, and drown out the noise. It's probably the biggest lesson I've taken in the last 2.5 years.
I think that's great. And I think self-awareness is probably the thing I've took. It's like I'm constantly looking inward to think, what am I enjoying and what am I not enjoying, and what do I want and what I don't want, and not worrying about what external forces say.
If I don't have Kev, my business partner, Kev's incredible. Like, who cares about anyone else? Talesca, and he's gone, and he's like, the energy levels of the man are incredible. Like, he's literally like he's like the little Duracell bunny in the office. Like, I'm like, mate, if you're not in, it's like the energy level's different. If I didn't have him, I would have probably fallen into a cycle of like, oh, I'm not good enough, can't do this. So So yeah, if you're lucky enough to have a business partner, I think it's a massive.
Me and
help
Emma
as well.
Emma's probably more. I'm probably more high energy at
Yeah,
times.
I think you're more like Kevin. I'm more like Amma.
Because Emma's more stable than me in some ways.
Yeah.
Like I'm probably emotionally more like you,
Yeah.
but probably the energy of Kev.
Yeah.
Whereas Emma's like, nothing wavers Emma. Like,
Mate,
like
Kev is
every day.
literally the best recruiter I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah.
he's incredible. His knowledge of the market. He's got one of these freak, like, you know, like a client calls up for the job. He's like, knows the name. Like, it's, I'm just like, how do you do that? It's mate. I'm lucky to be in business with him, mate. He's an incredible guy.
Good, love it. So, in terms of your 2025 predictions, let's just get on. If we look ahead now, where do you see your business changing? Like, what's the biggest change you're going to put your effort into this year? Obviously, the community stuff we're talking about. So.
Yeah, I think the biggest change for us, like many, we're going to really double down on how we look after our candidates and create communities, specialist communities in the disciplines. I think it's great building a community, but then how do you add value to it? So I think we really want to think about how we're adding value on a monthly, basis to keep people engaged in the community and feel we're getting something from it. So that's one piece. I think we're definitely on the AI journey, and I'm pretty sort of clear about where we use it, and that's to release our guys to be better consultants and advise and spend more time with people. So we're looking at where we can use it in terms of processes, automations. We're a Bullhorn user. People love it, people hate it. I think Bullhorn's a good system. Bullhorn is really about what you put into it and how well you use it and how well you can sort of tune it out with the automations. And I think, we work with a great partner called DirectMate who are really good in that space. So we're actually, it's funny the AI stuff, right? Because AI is coming. We've actually taken a pause just to clean up our database and clean up our house a little bit to make sure it's AI ready.
Yeah.
Because the problem is you put all these agents in and AI stuff in, but if your database is in a shit state, the outcome's shit. So we're actually not rushing.
Is there any AI agents that you've seen or from Bullhorn that can do that job?
So there's kind of not, and I was going for that because I was like, because we're actually we're changing all the fields in our CRM at the minute, right? And how candidates are tagged, and I sort of went to Andrew. I was like, can we just like peel everything out, clean it up, and put it back in? He's like, not really, but with automations, we can send all our candidates every 3 months like an update. Hey, do you want to update your details with us, and we'll do it that way. But yeah, there's not a way of. That'd be a great tool, mate. If you could actually just like pull out your database, put it in a wash machine, and put it back in. If anyone's listening in the tech space,
they'll do it. They'll figure it
business
out.
Idea
Someone will figure it out for sure.
But yeah, so I think get to that question. So getting AI, I think the first step is getting AI ready, which I think probably a lot of people are skipping, and then bringing in bits. If you bring all the AI bits in at once, your consultant's going to be like, "This is too much. Like, how do I use this?" So we're bringing in, we're speaking to a few companies like Quill and a few others about recording the phone calls, putting the CRM like stage 1, so on and so forth. I think we probably got 12 to 18 months to get ahead of it. I feel like we're pretty far. I feel like compared to some, we're like, yeah. And I think we're going through this cool. Like AI is pretty cool in terms of you now be able to prompt someone into your database and get information like that. But again, if your database isn't up to it, then it's not going to be much use, is it? So
no. Right. I got asked a really interesting question to wrap up. I got asked a really interesting question on my post about the Australia move. And, when I was back in 2011, Leo Harrison, founder of Chapter 2, one of the most incredible guys, partners with Stephen Bartlett, he commented on it. He said, Sean, what would you say to yourself at that age? Like, what if you could go back and tell them? So I said,
I saw that on LinkedIn. Yeah.
I said, first I said I'd post on LinkedIn, but then I was like, no. But what I'd seriously say was, just slow down and enjoy it, because I think a lot of my time in the 20s was constantly focusing on I've got to be better, I've got to be quicker, I've got to be where am I going next? I wasn't taking anything in. I don't think, and I'm trying my best. Especially I think since having a kid, I'm like, fuck this. This is already 18 months in. Like I've got to slow down. I've got to say that as I'm taking 9 days away and I'm missing it. But
yeah, but you're building a business.
Exactly. But my life is about slowing down to be faster in a way and to be better. And I think I don't know if a young 25-year-old would understand that in me, but I'd still try and get that into my old head. So what would you do? Would you take you back to when you moved to Hong Kong?
Yeah. Man, I've actually thought about this a lot the last 12 months. The biggest thing I would say, I would have backed myself more. And I think I've been really guilty throughout my life without getting too, but not backing myself. And that comes back to like seen things in markets, so knowing they're going to happen and not backing myself. And I think maybe it comes of age, and then maybe I've like trickled into my 40s. Now I'm like, do you know what? I know my stuff. I'm actually really confident about it. I've known it for 10 years, but only now do I feel like I'm really backing myself and believing in myself enough, if that makes sense. I think for me, yeah, I'll probably say just like believe in yourself a bit more.
Could you give me an example of like what you would do differently based on that advice?
Yeah. It's anything. I mean, I played rugby to a decent level, like semi-professionally, but when I played in teams before match, I was always like, I'm not good enough to be in this team, right? Which is a weird way to think about it. And I had other mates who went on and played professional rugby and because they backed themselves, right? And I was always like, always had self-doubt, like, no, I'm not really good enough to be in this team, or like. So it's hard to say what you'd have to do. I think I just back myself more, mate.
You maybe needed in a. Again, did you go out and? That's a good point. Did you seek external advice?
Nah, because that wasn't a done thing.
No, exactly. So that might be the key that I would have done as well. Is like maybe gone and spoke to people more. Like,
but then equally, like you risk going down a real rabbit hole. But I probably wasn't aware of it. Whereas only now looking back, you become aware of it with time and experience. But yeah, I would have backed myself more. I spoke about starting a business for about 6 years before I did, and now I'm like, oh, I wish I'd started 6 years ago. But hindsight is the one.
Well, I look at my time in Australia and I think, did I really enjoy it? I was always thinking I should probably go home.
Yeah,
this is probably not.
Should have gone to Melbourne, mate.
I know. I always thought, you know what? Like, I used to think about my family a lot, and like, do I really want to be this far away from everyone? And you'd see, because when I got to Melbourne, it was March, and then it quite quickly became like now. It was the weather changed, and then English summer was coming through. So I spent the first 6 to 9 months there watching my friends in the sun, but you know what I mean? Yeah. Doing the summer things, summer holidays, got to Europe, all that. And I'm like, I remember I was in Melbourne in Albert Park Lake with like cloudy days watching AFL. And I was like, this is not for me. But I remember always being elsewhere.
Yeah, but you know what, mate? The good thing in that is you did it. And that comes back to that thing we're talking about. Just circling back to the whole expat and traveling thing. Like, you go back, I wish I could go and live there. I wish I could go and do it. I'm like, you can't. You're like, I can never do it. I'm like, why not? We're like, I just can never do it. I'm like, just go and do it. If you don't like it, just go home. It's like when I moved to Hong Kong, I'd never been to Hong Kong. I moved there and people were like, what if you don't like it? I was like,
just go home.
I'll just come home. I'll literally just pack my bag and like give it 6 months and I'll come home.
Again, life's too short. Dan, time's up, mate. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
to
mate.
See you in person. We'll spend some more time together this week. And I hope people enjoyed this chat.
Well, it's an hour waffle, so hopefully.
Thank you as always for listening to today's show. I truly hope that you got value from it. Honestly, it's the only reason I take time every week to ensure that my audience, you guys, future and existing recruitment owners, you're learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. And today's episode is brought to you by my business, Hoxo. I'm the CEO and founder, and we're on a mission to help brand recruitment agencies and their people better. I want to help people have the tools to stand out in the most competitive markets in the world. So I'll see you again next week with another episode. Catch you soon.